I'm a big fan.
Our chalice lighting reading this morning are words from Reverend Theodore Parker. Be ours our religion, which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual works of love, its profession of faith, divine living. We light this flame, and we know that together in community, we are the vessel for divine living and the holder of a sacred fire.
Good morning and welcome, 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 everyone. I'm Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm speaking to you from land that's the traditional territory of the indigenous Iowa people. And just a reminder, whenever you hear a land acknowledgement, consider donating at least $1 to programs and services created by or supporting local indigenous people. We ask that you keep your microphones muted throughout the entire service. And after the service, everyone is welcome to turn your mic on and turn your camera on and join us in coffee hour breakout rooms. I am so glad to be back with you after time away for vacation and study leave. It's good to be back home and in community, because let's face it, community is what it's all about, really. It's like when you were a child and you had a doll or a blanket or a favorite pair of pajamas. You loved them and you held them close until they were soft and worn and sometimes patched. But you never saw the frayed and broken pieces. You loved them all the more for their familiarity. A minister named Linda Susan Ulrich writes, "Come now, all who are broken and cracked. Come to the place where your shattered pieces are the raw materials of mosaic and kintsugi. Here you will find welcome among the armless dolls and the cozy pilled sweaters. You are loved exactly as you are. And I'm so glad that you're here."
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. I'm Barbara Martin. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. So no matter who you are or where you've been or where you come from, you certainly are welcome in this service today. And we hope that you will find some comfort and inspiration for your journey in life here. Our gathering song today is Holy, 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 number 26. And you're going to see the words right up there on the screen. So it should be very easy for you to see and to sing along while muted.
I bring you today's offering words with my normal deep solemnity. A UU hiking in the woods came upon a Christian preacher and a group of people in white robes standing by the side of a river. He wasn't sure what was going on, so he walked right up to the preacher. And the preacher said, "Are you ready to find Jesus?" A little embarrassed, but wanting to find out what would happen next. The UU said, "Sure, yes, I am." The preacher grabbed him without warning and dunked him into the water, and he pulled him up again and asked the Unitarian, "Brother, have you found Jesus?" The Unitarian was honest and he said, "No, I haven't found Jesus yet." And the preacher looked shocked and grabbed him again and dunked him in the water for longer. He pulled him out again and said, "Have you found Jesus, my brother?" And the Unitarian said, "No, I haven't found Jesus yet." By this time, the preacher was at his wit's end, and he dunked the Unitarian one more time, but this time he held him down for 30 seconds until he began kicking his arms and legs. And then he pulled him up, and the desperate preacher asked the Unitarian, "For the love of God, have you found Jesus?" The Unitarian was gasping, but he wiped his face and his eyes and said, "No, are you sure this is where he fell in?" In order to continue the practice of our free faith, which requires absolutely no dunking or swimming, the morning offering will now be given and received through the link, which I'm about to put in the chat. Where'd it go? 1/2 of our electronic plate goes to internal social justice work, as always, and 1/2 to our Faith in Action partners, Planned Parenthood and Central Iowa Immigrant Support Coalition. And those will be changing very soon to this year's. So thank you. Thank you so much, Bruce. We've learned over these last 17 months or so, boy, have we learned. The church is about the people. Church is about being with one another. It isn't about the building. We are a community. We're a community of people who care about one another. We're a community of human hands and human hearts who come together to share our laughter and our tears and to minister to one another in the good times and the bads and everything in between. I'd like you to share now in the chat the names of anyone who could use some special care and attention this week. As we type their names, may the love of this community hold them all. May the light of this community shine on all the broken places of the world. May the work of our hands and our hearts support, aid, and comfort all those who hunger or thirst for food or water, justice or freedom. May we never look away when we're needed. May those who are grieving be comforted. May you be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May you find the rest you need. May the broken places be healed. May you be healed. And may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. Together each week we light 3 real or virtual candles. One for any joys and sorrows we speak aloud here, and one for all the names we put into the chat. And one last one for all the joys and all the sorrows which we hold deeply in our hearts, but that we haven't been able to speak here today.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. The first reading, entitled Coronavirus is Revitalizing the Concept of Community for the 21st Century by Faye Bound Alberti. Community, like loneliness, is frequently used without reference to specific origins and contexts. The word also means many different things. It can be regional, a group of locals living in the same region, or international, a community of beliefs, rather like the European Union. And community can mean people who share the same religion, job, ethnicity, or increasingly an online group, such as a fan site in which the only shared element is a love of Kim Kardashian. Community can mean shared rights of access, a community park, for example, which takes us a little closer to its historical meanings. Or it can mean something more nebulous and difficult to articulate, a feeling of sharing and belonging, a sense of community. That is about place and time and emotional rootedness. In my book, A Biography of Loneliness, I suggest that understanding community is critical to preventing unwanted loneliness. But to truly belong to a group or a place in a way that is psychologically meaningful and encourages resilience requires more than a shared interest. It demands a sense of shared obligation and commitment, something both emotional and practical. Practices that are based on a sustained, engaged concern for the well-being of others, especially those situated around habits of place and space, are that connect to established ways of sociability in the way that cinema dates might be supplemented by Netflix parties, will likely continue after the current outbreak has passed. Other invented traditions will evaporate unless they are incorporated into everyday practices, and with them, any hope of sustained social change. The opportunity exists to bring online and offline communities together as never before, to reframe the responsibilities of the individual to society and vice versa. If social media is sent as helpful in the support of elderly and valuable self-isolators, as has become apparent during the pandemic, for instance, it needs to be integrated into everyday lives and developed with aged bodies in mind. Elderly people won't start using Zoom unless they have access to training. devices, and Wi-Fi, as well as hearing and visual aids. Coronavirus is changing what is possible. Amid emotional devastation and uncertainty, it is providing the potential for more connectedness as well as less, and for radically changing the meanings of community itself. This pandemic might, paradoxically, bring people closer.
Our special music this morning is by Susan Jellinger, who will be doing Holly Near's I Ain't Afraid.
I Ain't Afraid by Holly Near, with some adaptions by Susan Jellinger. I ain't afraid of your Yahweh. I ain't afraid of your Allah. I ain't afraid of your Jesus. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. I ain't afraid of your churches. I ain't afraid of your temples. I ain't afraid of your praying. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. Rise up to a higher power. Free up from the fear that will devour you. Watch out for the ego of the hour. The ones who say they know it, the ones who would impose it on you. I ain't afraid of your Bible. I ain't afraid of your Koran. I ain't afraid of your Torah. Don't let the spirit of the law obscure your love, 'cause I ain't afraid of your Yahweh. I ain't afraid of your Allah. I ain't afraid of you, Jesus. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. Rise up and see a different story. Free up from the gods of glory and glory. Watch out for the threat of purgatory. Some would make a killing out of sin and Satan. I ain't afraid of the children growing. I am to hear the music flowing. I ain't afraid to learn stories knowing. I'm afraid of what we might overlook about us. Rise up to your higher power. Free up from the thought of fear will devour you. Watch out for the ego of the hour. The ones who say they know it are the ones who will impose it on you. I ain't afraid, nah, nah. I ain't afraid most of the time. I ain't afraid, I'm looking for kindness. I'm afraid of what we do if we weren't around. Afraid of what I do if you were not around. Rise up.
Yay!
This week's thoughts for meditation come from a poem also by Linda Susan Ulrich. It's called It Starts with a Spark. And here are her words. A quick flash that makes you doubt your senses, but then a tiny ember glows on the braided twine and brings a flame to life. A blurry array of pinpoint lights moves out toward the viewer. Soon you find a candle sitting on the table, desolate until its wick touches yours. And suddenly the brightness doubles. In an instant, the warmth has grown. This intensified glow draws others like a beacon. 5, 10, 50, hundreds maybe. Not moths bent on self-destruction, but fellow travelers seeking a road ahead. And holding those images in mind, Please join me for 1 minute of silent thought, meditation, or prayer.
Our second reading is entitled As the Founders Knew, Plurality Counts by Gary Kowalski. How important is religion to building strong communities? Let me be personal. After my father died when I was 5 years old, the church was my extended family. My mom remarried several times to a secular Jew, an unchurched humanist, a homosexual, a gun-toting National Rifle Association oil company executive. We moved. I changed schools and neighborhoods during my childhood. But in church, I found friends, absorbed lasting values, experienced a community of connection, a continuity, and eventually fastened on a vocation, studying at Harvard for orientation into the ministry. I wouldn't have devoted my life to building strong faith communities if I didn't believe that they could keep our fractured lives afloat. At the same time, religion can be divisive, separating sheep from goats. America remains ghettoized along ethnic lines that show up on Sunday morning, which remains, as Dr. King said, the most segregated hour of the week, or maybe 2 hours. We're polarized politically too. Yet my experience is that faith can introduce us to a widening sense of kinship and mutuality, rather than isolating us in parochial enclaves. Think of the progressive reforms, from abolition to women's rights, that organized among people of religious conviction. They originated among these people. But for faith to be a cohesive force, it must be inclusive rather than exclusive, universal rather than narrowly sectarian in its sympathies. This was the genius of America's founders, who conceived our country as a welcoming haven for people of all beliefs, ensuring that no single doctrine would be dominant over the others. Thanks to them and their care in keeping church distinct from government, America has avoided the balkanization of places like, well, the Balkans. Instead, we've enjoyed relative harmony among Jews and Christians, Muslims and infidels, making ours the most spiritually diverse nation in the world. Here, religion has remained true to its roots, from the Latin religare, that which binds together, or as the founders put it, out of many, one, e pluribus unum. Our second song today is 111, Life of Ages. Life of ages richly poured, love of God unspent and free, flowing in the prophet's word and the people's liberty. Breathing in the thinker's creed, pulsing in the hero's blood, living simply thought and deed, fresh
Vocalist Holly Near has never been known for mincing words. She wrote the song we heard this morning, I Ain't Afraid. I ain't afraid of your Yahweh. I ain't afraid of your Allah. I ain't afraid of your Jesus. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. Mahatma Gandhi said it even more bluntly. I like your Christ. I don't like your Christians. They are so unlike your Christ. But it isn't just Christianity. Organized religion as a whole has taken a big hit since the 50s. Right now, only 26% of Americans go to any type of religious service weekly. And 23% or so say they just have no religious beliefs whatsoever. But yet, given that, the Pew Research Center did a study with PBS, their Religion and Ethics Weekly News, and they found that a lot of the 46 million unaffiliated adults are religious or spiritual in some way. About a third of those folks say they are spiritual but not religious. 1 in 5 say they pray every day. And most religiously unaffiliated Americans think that churches, other religious institutions benefit society. They strengthen community bonds and help the poor. So why aren't they coming to church? Why aren't these people who say I'm religious, I'm spiritual? With very few exceptions, they're not looking for a church that's right for them. Religious organizations are too concerned with money, with power, with political positioning. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. And you know what? I get that. Sometimes I am too. Religion in America can be scary. When I hear stories about pastors getting up in front of a church, and as one did last week, told them the COVID vaccines were the mark of the beast. Or when I hear stories about a pastor raising money for his second airplane, I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. That's frightening. But those churches and those incidents, those people who destroy religion for their own gain, they are not religion as a whole. We're part of religion. Religion is important. I'll tell you why. Religion is important because unlike spirituality, it's about relationship and community. Let me unpack that a little. Spirituality is personal. Religion happens in a group. Religion happens in a community. No one, and I mean no one, has come up with a perfect definition for what spirituality actually means. The best that we've kind of been able to do is to say that it's about your belief about what makes up the most highly evolved version of humanity and how you see yourself getting close to that ideal. It doesn't necessarily involve a god or a goddess. You can have a spirituality as an atheist or a humanist. What's the best possible human, and how do I believe I get there? Some of you may know that Unitarian Universalists tend to be quite fond of Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Transcendentalist. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, the writer, and the Transcendentalist, they explored this idea of having a spirituality, which was personal, that was completely divorced from any kind of religion. There was a philosopher named Friedrich Schleiermacher, and he was the one who said every individual's intuition of truth, so what you believe to be true, should be accepted as true. And so Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Transcendentalists loved this idea that your experience was valid in and of itself. You didn't need somebody confirming it. By the late 18th and 19th centuries, you started having Hindu texts be translated. They were read by the Transcendentalists, and they were brought into this mix of ideas. They also endorsed our Unitarian and Universalist ideas and started the path toward a combined Unitarian Universalist religion. They supported the idea that there must be a truth in all spiritual beliefs. So what does that tell us? That tells us spirituality can be influenced and shaped. It can be changed by the world around us, by new knowledge, by revealed knowledge. It can be changed by what we read and the people we meet, and even by the religions and religious beliefs that we come into conflict with and into contact with. Spirituality can be shared by various people, friends, family, random people. Your spirituality might be like someone else's. But spirituality is belief, not necessarily practice. Having beliefs about the ultimate nature of reality, which are non-destructive and help to make positive changes in our lives and in the world, that's a wonderful thing. But if we've learned nothing else this past 17 months, we've learned that being home alone with our beliefs, well, it just may not be enough. It's lonely. We miss our church. We miss our people. We miss our tribe. We miss our beloved friends. We miss living out our values in a group. Our planet has just been through a year of incredible isolation and fear. We waited out the vaccines in family groups and in pods. We shifted to Zoom. We worked and we studied from home. We closed the church building. It's hard to practice a religion over Zoom. In a normal year, most of us Americans commute about an hour a day, 30 minutes each way to work. That doesn't sound so bad. And as most of you know, we tend to work 8 hours a day during the week and about 5.5 hours a day on the weekends. We catch up on things on the weekend. There was a 2020 OnePoll survey. It looked at the average amount of time spent on various devices throughout each day. The results said that the typical American spent 4 hours and 30 minutes on TV, 4 hours and 33 minutes looking at their phone, over 3 hours using gaming devices or little games, and nearly 5 hours on a laptop. If you haven't been keeping track with a pencil and paper, that's 17 hours and 9 minutes looking at screens every day of our lives for quite a few of us. Children under 18 spend 44.5 hours a week online outside of school. All those hours, and that's not even time to eat and sleep? Where are the things that nourish your soul in that space, that nourish your heart, that call you to be better? As our one reading said this morning, some of them may be online. You may find some community there. But the communities we see and hug and love and eat with already didn't get enough time in our lives. And then 2020 happened. And suddenly we realized how important our community was to us. Now, in some areas, community has always been the number one thing. In southwestern Ohio, where I lived for years, there are clusters of last names that you hear all the time. Stoltfus, Hirschberger, Yoder, Hochstetler, Troyer, Schrock. You hear them all over the place. They're Amish names carried by the Amish people who make their homes in Ohio's Adams and Brown and Claremont and Clinton counties. You know, here, nobody's ever surprised to see what, a bike lane? You wouldn't be shocked to see a bike lane. There, it's very common to see a buggy and a buggy rack when you go to the grocery store. And you often hear people telling a boss, "I'm so sorry, I'm late. I was stuck behind a buggy on a 2-lane road and I didn't want to scare the horses." And I used to spend time with Amish friends. So one day there I was sitting with them, a bunch of women. We were waiting for cinnamon rolls to rise, and one of the women's husband came in from the field, and he said to me, I had an accident and I broke my wheel on my buggy. Would you mind driving me over to the wheelwright? I want to drop off my wheel so I can get a loaner. And my brain went, oh, wow, the Amish have loaner car equivalents. But yeah, would I drive him to the wheelwright so he could drop off his wheel and get a loaner? And then could he borrow my cell phone to call the community phone, which was on a telephone pole in the middle of the community, and let someone know he was coming to the wheelwrights? And I realized in that minute, I didn't know as much about my Amish friends as I thought I did. They don't have phones, but they can use them. They don't drive, but they routinely ride in cars with the English, which is what they call everyone who's not Amish. Some of their stores have electricity and their shops have refrigerators, but their homes have ice boxes and candle lanterns. So what is the deal? And I went looking because I didn't want to be rude and I didn't want to lose friends by asking ignorant questions. So I went out to educate myself, and I found a book, highly recommended, by a man named Tony Campolo, and it's called Following Jesus Without Embarrassing God, which I found hysterical. And it answered a lot of my questions because Campolo went and talked to the Amish bishops to learn about this group of people. Amish people avoid modern technology, he wrote. They have no TV sets in their homes, no telephones. Electricity is hooked into the barn, but not the house. It may seem to us very harsh and rigorous, but here's how the bishop explained the Amish life to him. He said that most technology had a negative effect on people's lives. Television brings violence and poor ethical values into the homes. And people get addicted to it, the bishop said, so that a lot of people would like to watch less TV, but they just can't do it. But does that mean the Amish are against modern technology? No, the bishop said. The Amish believe it has a place. They weren't against telephones. In fact, the bishop had one installed on the pole in the middle of town. It was handy. But why bring it into the home? He said, telephones intrude on the most precious and dear moments of your life. You might be talking to your child, sharing something important with your wife, and if the phone rings, you're going to answer it. He said the family could be at prayer, you'll answer it. You could be with your wife in bed, and if you allow a ringing telephone in the house, it might interrupt what you're doing there. And the bishop laughed, but he was serious. Electricity could be a good thing, but you don't bring it into your house, because he said something fascinating. He said it disrupts the normal rhythm of life. With electricity, people stay up late instead of going to bed together. With electricity, people listen to radios and watch TV that involves them only in the outside world, not in their community. What about tractors? Why don't they use tractors? Well, with a tractor, one person can plow a whole field by himself in one day. He doesn't need anyone else. But using a horse-drawn plow, the whole family must be involved. So rejecting the tractor helps to create family and neighbor solidarity. You are drawn to each other because you need one another. The Amish have given more thought to this than most of us. 200 years ago, wherever you lived was your community. You knew everybody on your street, and that was even true in the 60s and early 70s when I grew up. You knew your neighbors. If you got sick, they brought you soup. The lady down the street made you a casserole. If someone died, everyone went to the funeral, and they noticed the absence in their life because you were the librarian or the teacher or the doctor or the minister. And they could tell there was a U-shaped hole in their lives if something happened to you. Everyone's life in that community was intertwined. But today we live in one place and we work somewhere 30 minutes away. We form groups around our hobbies and our children and our internet, maybe our churches. We're hardwired to find community. We need community. But in most cases, those communities only align with one or two things in our life. Our ski club is not going to be the place we go to ask deep and meaningful questions about the nature of existence. Religion and the church, that's a special type of community. It's a continuum of experience where maybe the Amish are at one end and we're at the other. But religion is the community experience of shared spirituality. We don't have to think alike. We have to live our values similarly to be a community. It's where we find out. Church is where we find out if our own beliefs about the world help to create or destroy harmony between people. In a world where most of our communities are limited, going to church, joining a religion, it calls us to be part of something bigger than ourselves and lets us bring our whole self to the community. And boy, do we need that. Spirituality without religion is easier to engage in. Everyone has personal beliefs, but we yearn for more. Religion helps us to find meaning. When we come together in our community dedicated to deep connection, something really magical happens. We're players in a bigger story because of light for one another. It leads us to grow in new directions. You know, that was one of the worst things about the worst of COVID. It separated people from their communities at minutes when they needed them the most. Spiritual but not religious has become a shorthand way of saying, I don't need to bother with other people. I believe what I believe, and I'm good with that. And that's fine if you really want to stop there. But as we begin to come back in community, We realize we need to be there for one another. We realize there is so much more to be gained. You know what you believe. Who am I to tell you differently? But in sharing the moments that we are called to by our spirituality, sharing how we live out our beliefs, we share our humanity. If we've learned nothing from this past year and a half, we've learned that we need to be together, where we can see and hug and feed one another and laugh with one another. We learned that, man, is community important. I ain't afraid of your churches. You got that right. I am afraid of being without community. So here's to being here for one another. And here's to being back together as soon as we can. I am so glad to see your faces here today, and I look forward to the day, hopefully very soon, when we will be in the church together. Amen.
We carry this flame in our hearts to light our way as we create a community of sacred relationships. Our final song, number 100, Peace Like a River. The words will be on the screen. Please join me. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul.
Take the religion of your hearts into the world and be blessed as you live your sacred truth. Peace, ashe, and may it be so. Our final hymn today is Hymn of Valor.